which now brings us on to our third issue, and that is MAGA rebellion on the Jeffrey Epstein issue. And since, Glenn, you are the CIA man, you are the expert on strange uh, deaths
On
uh,
prurient scandals, of course. That's right.
and prurient scandals, and indeed conspiracy theories which abound. I cede the floor to you because what do I know about this issue?
That's right. No, you're an innocent. You're an innocent
Uh,
victim of Western
I'm
repression.
not a victim, but
Um,
I'm an innocent. I'm an innocent boy who grew up in the third world in idyllic surroundings, riding buffaloes. What do I know about the ways of the world?
okay. Well, we're turning to farce, but also to one that is really quite sick, that is about very disturbing actions. It's a rare scandal, this Jeffrey Epstein scandal, that involves or has touched upon anyway Donald Trump, that has gained any traction. And this coming from, with regard to a man who has, at my last count, been the target of 89 indictments, a number of convictions, hundreds of millions of dollars of fines, and over 400 publicly documented instances of associations of one sort or another of him, his family, or his entourage with known and suspect members of Russian intelligence. But here we have pedophilia, and that has struck a chord. I think really it's not the pedophilia that struck a chord or stricken a chord, struck a chord, but the fact that this is a conspiracy theory scandal that has driven much of the MAGA or MAGA, if you aren't from Boston, right, and Trump supporters in the United States. And so therefore, it may be of consequence. So what is the scandal? And you'll have to forgive me for dealing with something that usually is on the local news pages of American newspapers, talk about rapes, murders, floods, and disease. Jeffrey Epstein was a very successful financier. He made a lot of money on Wall Street. Well, good for him. And then once he did, he spent his time and his resources indulging his urges, which was to have sex with adolescent girls. Not only, but he, in Donald Trump's words, had a thing for the young ones. And the way he did that was by recruiting many of these young women to work in one of his enterprises or locations or another as a masseuse or an employee or something, and they would be trained to be accommodating, not only by, but significantly by Jeffrey Epstein's significant other, his girlfriend, a woman named Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the daughter of the prominent journalist, forget Maxwell's first name, Rupert Maxwell.
I don't think he was necessarily a journalist. I think he was the owner, the proprietor. He was the
Yes,
newspaper
yes,
baron, like
right,
Rupert
yes,
Murdoch.
exactly.
I think if you name
So
your
Epstein
child
had,
Rupert, I think if you name your child Rupert, he has a bright future.
well, apparently there was a correlation between names considered unusual in a given society and higher degrees of success. But that's another subject. So Epstein lived in New York, Palm Beach, as a neighbor and friend of Donald Trump. And he had his own island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, no pun is intended, by the name of the islands. And he would fly these girls or young women there to work, where they would be induced to engage in various acts and or debauched. So Epstein was arrested for this in 2005, convicted to 13 months in jail, a sentence in the trial that was roundly criticized because he was alleged to have gotten off very lightly for fear of having to pursue the case further and expose to prosecution a significant number of prominent American males, such as Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and the famous or infamous lawyer Alan Dershowitz, and so on. And there was a non-prosecution agreement as part of the deal, and he got out to much dissatisfaction. That's way back in 2008. In 2018, a decade went by. 2018, the Miami Herald newspaper broke a story of interviewing, quote, survivors, women who had been involved with Epstein and his, it's not a prostitution ring, what I don't know what you'd call a sex ring or activities. And that reopened the issue. And there was a lot of pressure to bring this man to justice. And so he was charged and imprisoned. And before he could come to trial in 2019, he was found hanging from his maximum security cell. Shouldn't laugh at someone's death in prison, something where this was not considered to be possible to have happened. Don't worry, we have video. We'll learn very quickly what was going on. Well, unsurprisingly, the 3 critical minutes of video before which he was alive and after which he was dead have been expunged, erased, disappeared. No one knows who did it. Nobody knows what happened. And now this gets to why the issue becomes significant, politically at least. Donald Trump's name has surfaced many times in the testimony as a friend, associate, and is alluded to in ways that are not publicly known yet, but always which are clarified by saying he is not alleged or to have done anything illegal that anyone is aware of. But Donald Trump and the conspiracy theorists on the right have ridden conspiracies to the White House by playing up all sorts of ones, that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile sex ring out of a pizza parlor in Washington, where I used to go buy pizza, actually. When I first heard that one, which is a separate scandal conspiracy theory and totally absurd and true, I laughed, thinking that no one would believe such nonsense. And of course, I am completely wrong. And a large segment of America is fascinated by this and believes this. And the whole QAnon phenomenon of conspiracy theorists by anonymous allegers, nothing ever documented or proven, almost everything disproven, have driven much of American politics and the Donald Trump phenomenon for over a decade now. And that's the case with this Epstein scandal for 2 primary reasons. One, Donald Trump's name is involved, and there is supposed to be a client list that Trump, during the campaign, pushed hard to have released, because this was a way to attack the Democrats, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, by extension, Joe Biden, and on and on and on. He said as soon as he was president, he would make sure this was released so the justice is served. His attorney general, Pam Bondi, pledged to do the same. And then as soon as she came into office, she informed him, Trump, that his name appeared multiple times in the testimony and so on, and in the client list, apparently, not as a client, but his name has appeared. And so all of a sudden now Trump hasn't wanted to release the, quote, client list, which has infuriated the conspiracy theorists of the MAGA section of American society, which are his political base. And the second reason is that Epstein killed himself, and there became a catchphrase, a meme even, quote, Epstein didn't kill himself, unquote. Something I do not know the answer to, but even I would wonder about how someone could be alive 1 minute and then dead the next, precisely at the time when the video has gone missing. And when the guard who was assigned there under strict orders never to leave him out of his sight decided to pee at that very moment, or some such reason to absent himself.
It's
And
straight
we
out
don't
of
know
a
the facts.
Godfather movie. It's straight out of a Godfather movie or a Mossad
Oh
operation.
my God! Oh my God! How can one ever be cynical about the paths of justice? Please. Um, so the Epstein didn't kill himself um, point or conviction, and the lack of the client list being revealed, publicized after years of saying that it's all about the Democrats, they're evil and will bring justice to America and undo the deep state and all these elite people who condescend to us, who are out having sex with 13-year-old girls, um, are being that segment of society is being frustrated because all of a sudden Donald Trump has decided that a conspiracy is a conspiracy, and let's turn the page. Now, will this have any consequence other than the prurient amusement of the American public? Well, the polls are relatively, as always, encouraging for Donald Trump. I would argue 63% of voters disapprove. However, most MAGA supporters, 56 to 38%, say, "Oh, this is all just the Democrats criticizing Trump. There's nothing here." All of a sudden, and most traditional Republicans, all of the brave souls sitting in Congress who do whatever Donald Trump tells them to do, 40% of them approve how Trump is handling this. 36% condemn, and 24 say, "Well, I don't know, never heard of this." So those who don't like
They're
Trump
busy. They're
don't
busy
like
with
what's
their
happened.
children's baseball games, Glenn,
That's what
and
they're doing. That's what they're
legislation
doing.
and meeting their
They're good
constituents.
family people. They're good family people. That's right. Um, the Democrats have been trying to keep the heat on this. It's one of the few instances of an issue that has, for a lasting period of time, made Trump squirm. I suspect it will have some harmful effect on Trump and the Republicans in the midterms a year from now. But a year is a long time. And even the results of this tempest seem to me relatively moderate. But not that any of you listening or I think, needed to be informed that conspiracy theorists were contradictory with themselves and would believe what everyone believes at a given moment, or what they're told to. But that seems to be the phenomenon, which raises the larger issues, which we won't go into, of, and I'm being serious, of social, psychological, what's the delusion, sincere delusion. And what comes to mind is the reaction of many communists in 1939, when for decades the Nazis, for many years, the Nazis had been denounced as the Marxist version of the Antichrist and to be opposed at all costs. And then from one day to the next, with some discomfort, but nonetheless, most communists did a complete 180-degree turn and said that, well, since the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany have signed a pact, they're now our friends and
The
everything is okay.
Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact.
Which was the last step before the outbreak of fighting in World War II, for the dismemberment
So that our viewers and listeners
Poland.
know, that was basically the partitioning of Poland between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. And in fact, the Soviets got most of Poland. They gobbled it up.
And its relevance here, I think, is the
just
broad...
one more thing. And that caused massive cognitive dissonance amongst communists everywhere, including communists in India or, say, Indonesia or Vietnam. And still, largely, these communists remained loyal to Moscow and to Joseph Stalin. Over to you, Glenn.
Right. And that is the point. That's why I mentioned something from 1939, because of this social psychological phenomenon, is that where groups will align with and actually believe the statements of their tribal leaders, and the facts really are minor in decisiveness.
So there's
So
one
I
thing.
think the
So
consequences of
there's
this
one
will
thing to
be
add. There's one
moderate.
thing to add, Glenn, that these phenomena have occurred throughout history, but social media has increased the speed of it. And echo chambers on the internet and the dark web and all that sort of stuff has just meant that something that would have taken months to spread now can spread in days or
Right.
hours. So that is the difference. Over to you,
And
Glenn.
I've actually had firsthand experience of this exact phenomenon with regard to Donald Trump. I'll fudge just a little bit to protect the innocent and the guilty, but and I'm not making a joke here. Lifelong friends of mine, lifelong, many decades, who I know have known and were immigrants, refugees from the Soviet Empire when I first met them as a boy, were ardent anti-communists, anti-Soviet, and therefore anti-Russian all their lives. But a couple of them have become Trump cultists, frankly, and have taken to denouncing me because I dared to say in public that I was alarmed by the infinite number of associations of Russian intelligence with Donald Trump, and that I had committed an apostasy in making such an allegation. And these people are sincere in their criticisms of me, and yet their entire lives were determined and shaped by the oppression and horrors of Russian totalitarianism and communism that they fled. It didn't matter. So I think we'll probably deal with a similar phenomenon here with regard to the MAGA crowd and the Epstein case. That said, to conclude, it will have some, I think, some effect on Trump, a little crack, but not fundamental.
Yeah. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bid you adieu. We will see you next month in August. Have a lovely summer. If you are in France, enjoy your holidays while you still have them. And we will struggle through the heat in North America. Bye for now.
Bye.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.